Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today and forced to bear witness to a most unnatural and abhorrent union between this man, Benjamin Effortless Wilson, this boy, Nick SantaCroce, and this nerd, Matthew Andrew Schenk. Under the umbrella of their Church of the New Way, these three chuckleheads use the internet to lure others into depraved discussions about the Star Wars and penises. I urge you good citizens to heed my warning and cover your ears lest you be exposed to adult content such as cheesesteak rape, red weddings, and Luke Stevens. Listener discretion is advised.
Marriage is what brings us together today.
Guys, the real enemy here is the institution of marriage.
Isn't she beautiful, scraping off the pudding with the grace of a butterfly?
I've given you meat, wine, music, but I haven't shown you the hospitality you deserve.
Everybody wants to be naked and famous. Everybody wants to be just like me. I'm naked.
Will you help teach me about this? What is it? A new way?
Hello, and welcome back to another exhilarating edition of the New Way podcast, minus one of our compatriots tonight.
Well, I was hoping you would say, I am Matt, and I could say, I am Ben.
And then
there would just be
dead silent
for 45 minutes.
And we just pretend that like Nick's mic was broken, but he was still talking. So we just be like, "Oh, Nick."
Let's just call this a throwback episode.
Yes, this is it's been a long time since Ben and I were alone.
It's been a while.
No, that's just awful. But thank you for tuning in. Once again, we thought we were going to have a bunch of episodes in a row, and once again, we have come up short. But what we're going to do now is we're going to promise you one episode a month, so that anytime we do more than that, it's a great surprise that there are more episodes.
I'm pretty sure that we can probably get an episode together by next week, but we'll see.
We can try. I mean, we missed a week or two. Because of the traveling and the pants and whatnot. So, and as you know from talking to Google, my favorite movie is Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants 2. Not the first bullshit one, but the second one where they really find their legs, literally, pant legs.
Yeah, it's a far better narrative. I would say the narrative structure of that film really lends itself well to the medium, and it's Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants. I would the two, not to be confused with one.
That is. I mean, one is just it's garbage. It's really garbage, and then they really one of the few movies just come out of the gate on the second time around and go, hey, we learned from our mistakes. Let's do better. Let's do better for
It's true.
We are our fans. So thank you for listening. Whoever's listening, I see randomly like people will like our Last Pint Productions Facebook page. Right. I have no idea who they are, and I obsessively look into their lives to be like, oh, this person's a producer. We had some producer that I'm sure is someone that you know.
Jeremiah.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, there you go.
I was like, hey, a producer likes us. We're so small that one like is like us hitting 10,000 fans.
See, the thing is I don't like. You can go down that rabbit hole. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole because I'm afraid of what I might find. I
just want to know what is the entity, because usually it's some sort of like click farm from India that is clicking us so that it throws them off the trail of their jobs. Right. And there's some poor guy in India that maybe we have like one Indian fan. And it could be like the gods must be crazy if we show up there.
Somewhere on a random Monday afternoon, and like it was
is Ben Effortless Wilson.
Yeah,
I watched that movie.
Ranjit is slapping his knee about us making jokes about Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, that would be great. Well, one of the reasons we've been off air for a couple of weeks is that Ben and I were traveling, and Nick was traveling for part of it as well. But Ben and I had back-to-back weddings to attend to, destination weddings. actually.
Yes, those beautiful destinations of Tallahassee, Florida, and Cleveland. Well, actually, Stowe, Ohio.
Stowe, Ohio.
Don't confuse it with Cleveland because that would be too sexy.
That would be, yeah, this is a suburb of the suburb of the suburb of Cleveland. I was getting
it's like you know how everyone always argues like what's the more fucked up state where shit happens, Florida or Ohio? Like
yeah.
Stowe, Ohio is where all of the fucked up shit happens.
Oh, that barn, you know people were murdered in that barn. But I'm actually currently drinking Beer Hates Astronauts from one of the grooms of one of the weddings we went to. JR and Terry, his wife, got me a 4-pack because I emceed their wedding kind of out of nowhere. After playing Surrogate Father.
That was such a good bro move. I mean, yeah, that was. I mean,
it was fun.
I know. It could have been easy to say no to that. I feel like it could have been easy to say no to that because it's like one of these things where like just imagine like a month before the wedding, somebody's just like, "Oh yeah, so can you MC the wedding? Can you basically DJ it?" I was.
Well, the DJing part is where I started to panic because I just assumed like, look, if you just want me to like sit and talk in front of a microphone and introduce people,
like you even need a microphone.
Yeah, I don't need that. Just that's super easy. But it was the trying to figure out the sound system at the barn in Stowe, Ohio was that was a little bit rough. But I made it through and it was a beautiful wedding. Both weddings actually very beautiful.
Yeah.
And great times had by all. So I kind of had weddings on the brain after going through both of these. And the week before, of course, I didn't MC a wedding, but I played Ben for the weekend, and I was father to his children.
For the weekend,
and his wife's husband.
Well, I mean, I would say maybe a good half of the weekend.
A full Friday and Saturday.
A full Friday and Saturday, huh?
Look, my friend.
So Matt got a taste of my life.
I went from no children to all of Ben's children and wife, but I had a lovely time and great kids. Okay.
So did she.
It appears we have a mystery caller calling for us right now, and we're gonna have to find out who that is. So let's see here. Hello, caller. You're on the air.
Hi. I heard that a certain Mr. Ben Wilson fell asleep during the tour de force known as Spider-Man: Homecoming.
It's true. Now I know that this was planned.
I just my spidey sense was tingling, unlike Tom Holland in Spider-Man: Homecoming.
Oh boy.
Oh, but apparently his spider sense is already tingling in the trailer the footage that they showed for Avengers Infinity War 1. So hey, listen.
So Ben officially knows more about the unreleased trailer to Infinity Wars than the actual movie he went to see, Spider-Man: Homecoming.
Brother, you try working off the amount of sleep that I had and then having 4 or 5 beers and then sitting through a movie in the afternoon. I felt wonderful after I watched that movie. I liked every single part of that movie I saw, which is probably about an hour and 15.
You up.
It was like an hour and 15 minutes.
You were like, I was like, oh, let him sleep.
I'm gonna go see the movie again. Come on.
This, by the way, this was
People
after
didn't fall asleep during Crash, did they?
This was after the gentleman that was seated 2 seats down from us moved several seats down because Ben and I were being too loud talking about things in the movie. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
But there was a gentleman that was not happy. I love that Nick is holding up his High can full frame on the video of Sky. Ben can't see any of this. So
I'm showing you because it's White Oak High which I can't find in Boynton Beach, and I'm in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Matt.
Oh, really?
Yep.
You can get that here.
Well,
yeah, you have to kind of you have to know where it is.
So Nick is now. Nick is
you know
now.
What I said when I saw it?
It's White Oak High. I'm gonna drink that.
Hi, lalai.
Oh no.
La 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 la.
All right. Well, so Nick, Nick, we're doing our. This was a terrible idea. By the way, this is Nick, everyone. In case we did not introduce who this caller was, in case you were worried about who it was.
Not the Nick that's usually with us. This is some other.
No, this is another Nick. And he's right now. He's got his penis next to the highlight can for a size comparison. And about 50, about equal. I'd say about even. Right.
But the girth is even also, so that's important.
This is actually Nick's a little girthier than the can, actually.
They used to call me old highlight can SantaCroce in high school.
So Nick, we are doing a podcast on weddings in movies. Do you have a particular wedding scene or moment or movie that you want to talk about before we hang up on you?
Yeah. Wait, what? I cleared my schedule.
Well,
Matt, I could be eating cheesesteaks and having my way.
Well, that's
okay,
what I.
Okay, Woody Allen.
Hold on. Wait.
I could be eating cheesesteaks.
Well, he also didn't finish. He was eating cheesesteaks and having his way with cheesesteaks. Either or. So you must be using the cheese whiz in
So
that case.
he eats the Pat's cheesesteak and then he has his way with the Geno's cheesesteak. That's the way it goes.
Gino, you're not good enough for anything but this.
No, exactly.
I'm playing Fuck, Marry, Kill with all of these prominent cheesesteaks.
That's so gross. Okay, well, now that you've ruined cheesesteaks for everyone. Uh-oh. Whoa. You just, I don't know what just happened, but you sounded like Tron.
Skynet has taken over. It's not Nick, hang up.
It's Avengers Age of Nicholas.
I think you should just hang up and let him dial back in.
You know what? Listen.
Now I can just see his forehead.
You can't kick me out of the podcast.
I mean, I can just turn Skype off.
Listen, I have a contribution.
Uh-oh.
Did anyone pick Bride of Frankenstein yet?
We have not actually talked about any
We haven't
movies
talked
yet.
about anything yet.
Oh, okay. Well, then I'm going to go with Bride of Frankenstein.
Okay.
Well, we're not even doing a list, so I don't even know what you're talking about. You're like, what, why are you picking Bride of Frankenstein? Like,
What do you like about Bride of Frankenstein?
What is the criteria? There was absolutely no, this is the least amount of criteria we've ever had walking into a podcast. And Nick calls in, it's just like, I pick Bride of Frankenstein.
Bride of Frankenstein! There were no lists.
Well,
it doesn't matter what the criteria is. That's the one.
You said wedding movie.
I asked him for an opinion about a wedding movie. So he's choosing Bride of Frankenstein.
I'm just giving a hard time.
I know.
Doesn't the Bride of Frankenstein get married in the Bride of Frankenstein? What's the movie about? I haven't seen it.
they're remaking it, right?
You know, it's about Frankenstein eats the bride, right? On their wedding night, only after they're married and it's legal and, kosher. So, okay, that was we took a bad turn. So we're going to go back to the lovey-dovey stuff, but thank you, Nick, for calling in all the way from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
How's everything in Philly?
It's pretty good. This city's fucking great.
No,
for real.
I actually really like Philadelphia. And every time I tell people I like Philadelphia, they look at me like I've grown a third eye.
No, it's really awesome. It's really great. I'm having a blast.
Yeah, I'm not going to share it right now on the podcast, but I've shared my story about Philadelphia many times, which I'll do at some point maybe in the future.
Oh,
but,
look at that tease right there. If that's not a reason to turn
tease
into episode 48, I don't know what is.
It doesn't fit in well with the wedding episode.
If I actually just made this episode stories about Ben before or after weddings, we could have had a whole episode.
Oh, I was already about to broach that
I was going to do
subject.
that too.
I would have had more material.
Yeah, this is true.
If we were going to talk about Matt before or after weddings, I think we could also populate another episode.
That would be another one.
He broke into his own house.
I did do that. That was me.
And I drove your car and someone crashed into it that night.
All right, well, we're going to hang up on Nick,
And
but
also,
thanks for calling, Nick. That was great. Okay,
probably-
we lost our connection with Nick. That was upsetting. Anyway.
Here, just pick it up once.
I don't. Broken. Must. It doesn't. I don't know. It's not working.
Not working.
Someone's gonna.
What? Sorry. Okay. Anyway.
I hope he doesn't call me again.
I'm gonna shut down Skype so that he can't call. No, hold on. I'm shutting it down. Hold on. I feel like I'm hacking. So I'm almost in. I'm through the first wall. I'm gonna get there. Where is it? Where's the Skype service? No. No. I have to get rid of it. Oh, criminy. He's gonna keep calling. He'll keep calling me. He'll keep calling me.
I'll go. And if you picked up that reference, then you are cool.
Yeah, then you're just as geeky as the rest of us. So that was our first attempt at a call-in moment on the show.
I think it works well,
and I think it worked pretty decent. We'll find out when we play it back.
He's gonna start calling my cell phone now, though.
Nick SantaCroce shared a video. I just keep getting these weird updates from Skype, but I'm unable to shut down Skype. Whatever. So anyway, we are talking about wedding movies after that slight departure from.
So before we actually get into and I'm interested in wedding movies or also weddings as a construct in a movie and that type of thing. But before we get into it, because I feel like we were about to broach the subject anyway, I'm assuming we both have some pretty legendary wedding stories.
I would say so. I mean, I've been to. So you know that my superpower is that I get invited to weddings, whether I know the person for a long time
or just
a short time. Like, not only was I the MC at Terry and JR's wedding, but there were a lot of people who are like, "Are you even really friends with Terry?" And they're like, I lived with her for a year. I'm like, I didn't live with her. I've hung out with her 10 times, but we have a good time. So I get invited. Yeah, I have a lot of mundane wedding stories, but the ones that are the good wedding stories are pretty good wedding stories.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the same superpower. I had a superpower in the 2000s, which was that every time I went to a wedding, I would get laid by somebody random.
There we go.
Which was, I mean, just to put
going right into that one,
just to put it right out there. Which then evolved into a completely different superpower of. I don't even know if it's a superpower. Of being overly responsible during a, not basically not partying, during the actual wedding because there was so much partying done before. Which has happened quite a few times now.
Yeah, I definitely like to enjoy a wedding if I can. But I'm similar. Like, I didn't like Luke's wedding. I was very subdued.
Luke's wedding, I mean, we didn't have anything for me. I was just so the listeners know, I was part of his bachelor party.
Best man.
Well, I was part of his bachelor party. So we were in Tampa strip clubs and breweries for one night, and then we were in Tallahassee drinking all day and playing music all night. So by the time we actually got to the weekend, it was just kind of like, okay, I'm ready for this just to be kind of,
Well, and I thought we could play a little bit of Ben's best man speech, which I do have here on the computer.
What? You do? No shit.
Yeah, here we go.
I've given you meat, wine, music, but I haven't shown you the hospitality you deserve.
That is, of course, Ben right before murdering most of the people at the wedding during a red wedding. But yeah, that was some of his speech. It was, it caught us off guard. It was a little bit different direction I think any of us thought he was going to go. But
I had to do. I mean, Luke Stevens is kind of a dude who goes in a little bit.
And then, they ended it just with, a very jarring moment was.
The Lannisters and their regards.
And none of us really know what that means, but it was a really good toast. I have to say it was pretty fantastic. So
yeah, it wasn't as funny as I probably thought it might have been. The only people who were laughing were like the dirty skirty guys because they're all there. Like all the family members just have no context, and I knew that was going to happen. I was just like, I was like, this is only going to be one of those things where it's going to be funny to me and Luke, and I know it's only going to be funny to me and Luke. So you just have to have the heart to go with it to make sure that
what there. I liked about it, because I could sense there was an uncomfortableness to certain folks in the room, but what I like a good
And
Lynch movie.
By the way, I was not one of those guys that starts sharing like really bad moments.
No.
It was more about an assessment of the character of Luke.
It was the toast Luke would give himself.
Exactly.
That's what I appreciated about it. It was very Lynchian in that, like, maybe you're not going to like this, but there's one person here who this is how they would do it. Which, I mean, Luke is the person who sent me messages the morning after discussing how he was going through all of the cards and evaluating everyone's gift. And that I was by the way, after the sex, he made sure to include that. He's like, after all the sex,
quote unquote,
we opened up cards because we couldn't wait, and then I was given a slow golf clap on my present.
All Luke sent me was a picture of him spread eagle with a dirty skirty cap over his junk.
Oh God!
And I was just like, nice. And then he was just like, do you not see it? And I was just like, no, your cap is covering it. He was like, no, the bruise on my leg. Like, that's the way he sends me something about the bruise. I was like, he's like
God
mystery
almighty.
bruise. And I'm like, I'm sure you got that at Mons Venus 3 nights ago, dude.
Well, now that you've heard a little bit about Luke, you should go back to our podcast. I think it's 30, somewhere around there.
No, it's 28.
28, which is about Gadwell Lane, where Luke is actually on the podcast when we were all huddled around the USB mic on your porch.
And you'll probably understand a little bit more, but there's no way to ever, I think, get the entire picture of
we
Luke
can't
Stevens.
really bring Luke on the podcast because there's no way to contain the essence of Luke into into iTunes. You just can't do it. Dirty Scurry is as close as you'll get. But yeah, I agree that there's kind of a discussion of those of you listening can't see. I'm usually wearing a shirt that I feel kind of lines up with the podcast. So tonight I'm wearing a Mario shirt, and the reason I'm wearing the Mario shirt is that I think in pop culture we're exposed to weddings at a very early age and in very different ways. So you tend to think it's the females that are more tuned into the wedding stuff. So they're getting all of the Disney movies and the princesses, and all these movies end with them finding the prince and doing it. That's changing nowadays. But for a lot of young men, Zelda and Mario were wedding stories. Basically, what is Mario? It's a guy dating. He dates 7 women that are not the princess. They're not the one. No, your true love is in another castle. Goes through all of these adventures and finally finds the wife at the end after going through all the trials and tribulations. And the same with Zelda. Like, what
That sounds like my life.
it kind of, well, your problem is those Hammer Brothers on level 8. Those were the ones that really standing in your way. But we're exposed to that from Looney Tunes. There's weddings. So everyone knows this sound cue here. Here comes the bride.
So boring as fuck.
Yeah, it is. It's one of the worst
Processionals.
It is a funeral dirge. Like this is a song that someone should be carried in a casket out of a church to. It is not a celebration
Coincidence?
song.
I think not.
Yeah, it's when you bury your single self and they're escorted from the building.
Well, what I was gonna say is I feel like there's always been kind of the epitome of the romantic concept of love, and marriage being like the penultimate, not penultimate, the ultimate.
Yeah.
Where you reach that moment of where this is where everything's going to work out, and that's the reason why you see in early popular culture, talking about novels, plays, everything you go up to there, even through the Disney movies and whatever, that a lot of times the romance is like the romantic aspect of a lot of these properties is that it ends at a wedding. I mean, it ends with this being, they ride off into the sunset together because they just got married and everything's wonderful and now they're gonna fuck. Actually, leave that part out. But that's what. Is it weird as a kid that I was always just like, now's where she becomes a woman?
Yes, that is super. I never thought that far ahead.
I'm really kidding right here. I wasn't actually thinking that, but now I think that. Now I'm always just like, man, Ariel's gonna get it tonight.
Well, so I was, I was very much, so like when I was in my being confirmed, I was debating whether or not I was going to go into seminary in the Lutheran church. Like, that was a religion. So for me, marriage was a big deal because it was exactly what you're saying. Like, during the middle school years, it was like, well, I got to get married so that can happen. Well, so that was the one thing holding me back.
So the romantic ideal has always been there, and I think it continues to be there. But now I feel like, and I don't know if it was sort of the Arthur Miller or just kind of the new wave scene when film was kind of moving in the 40s and 50s and 60s after kind of the feminist movement kind of took off. But I feel like you're seeing a lot more. You started to see a lot more things that started with the wedding, and then it was more about the introspection that happened afterwards, or whether that was and so I feel like there's the romantic ideal that's always been there, where it's just like this is kind of the end of the story, where everything's happy ever after. And then I feel like there's the alternate side where this is either the beginning or the middle of the story, and it's more about the coming to terms with being married.
It's interesting because it's funny because I find that in most pop culture, it's still the goal. It's still the culmination. Now it's used. So weddings, as I was kind of looking at them, they're almost 100% just used as a plot device for whatever reason. And I kind of looked at a number of movies and determined, okay, so there's
4 weddings and a funeral.
You have a lot of like templates for the wedding movies. You have the one where it's bride, groom, whomever that is crazy or a playboy or can't settle down or whatever. They're too busy, they're too whatever to get married, and then by the end of the movie, they fight this thing, and then eventually it's like they lose to the beast that they've been fighting the whole time, and they wind up getting married. You have that. Then you have
which never happens in real life.
Never ever happens in real life.
I will say though, I mean, like we did just go to 2 weddings where I thought hell would freeze over. Not necessarily. That's a harsh way to put it, but
you're right.
I expected Luke to get married in his 40s at some point, like early 40s maybe, because he has a daughter who's almost 10 years old now.
Yeah.
And I was thinking maybe at some point he would settle down as Scarlett was getting into her teens or whatever, his daughter, and then Terry was always just I always had a hard time. But it goes to show you there's somebody out there for everybody.
It's because very much about finding the right.
Terry is a wonderful person, and I love her, and as does Matt. But I was always a fan. And I was just like, with all of her idiosyncrasies and all of her her own kind of self-worth issues, I was always just like, well, I mean, I'm not sure.
Endless energy.
Yes, and endless energy. Like all of these things combined creates this like bubbling little,
she's basically she's if Kristen Chenoweth played the Energizer Bunny, that's pretty much Terry,
but was much shorter.
Yeah, well,
Chenoweth is like
pretty small.
Chenoweth is like 3 inches taller than Terry.
Oh. That's funny.
Chenoweth is not a tall person.
No. I mean, it's interesting because the other side of it is sort of similar to what you're talking about. So weddings, it symbolize change, right? That's really what you're looking at. There's a maturity, there's an evolving, there's a metamorphosis that takes place for these wedding movies. And pardon me while I'm having a hard time with my Predator bottle opener. I think the other side of it is
maybe you should use the chopper.
It's they use weddings as a term to coming to grips with some other family member or whatever. So you've got things like father of the bride, right? Which is, it's not about the wedding. It's about a father coming to grips with his little girl growing up and becoming an adult, and his fight against that, but it's wrapped in all of the other things he's pretending it's about, but it's really just about that emotional
like
connection.
I said, you look at every Disney movie, it's the plot device is like the end all be all at the end of the movie, but it has nothing to do with the actual plot.
Yes.
Which is, or for example, I'm really surprised. I hope you loaded Mailage on the soundboard.
Of course I did. I mean, I've got, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me, Ben Wilson? All right, just in case you are all thinking I would not put...
Okay, I knew it was going to happen.
Marriage is what brings us together.
Now,
today.
I'm going to talk about one other plot point that tends to happen in movies, which is the melding of families, which they use to great effect in a lot of movies. What happens when two different cultures, two different styles of parents, all those things happen. And this is no greater exemplified than an examination of another culture having a wedding in a little scene South Park episode that I don't know if anyone else is going to remember this, but for those of you who are not from Canada, this is what happens at a Canadian wedding.
Isn't she beautiful, scraping off the pudding with the grace of a butterfly? She rubs the pudding on her face. The prince now attempting to remove one of the princess's arms, as is, of course, the tradition. The princess screaming with pain, everyone watching with anticipation, and the arm is off. Things are back to normal here in Canada. Time-honored traditions are once again... Yes, the princess is sticking the princess's arm up his ass. There it goes. He's really making a good go of it. What a wonderful day for Canada, and therefore, of course, the Well.
So,
fucking South Park is just the best.
What we learn from weddings really is there are all of these different plot devices, but what's great is that a wedding is, from a screenwriting standpoint, a wedding is a gold mine of riches that you can go any way you possibly want. Are you enjoying the Beer Hates Astronauts?
God damn, it's
How
so good. good
is that?
Hell yeah.
That is a
JR,
solid,
man.
yeah.
I'm
JR and Terry.
JR,
yeah.
just a second. Yeah. Wow.
Well, I did tell him that we were going to dedicate this podcast to them, and we would drink Beer Hates Astronauts on the podcast.
Nice.
So,
okay.
But yeah, I think that the weddings are this rare place where you have all kinds of different people converging together. You have friends and family that don't know each other. You have different sides of things. If you're looking at like a West Side Story situation, you have the cultural things, like My Big Fat Greek Wedding does that to great effect. But weddings are just a very easy place to say, I can write 15 scenes here, and they don't have to lead anywhere. They just literally can exist as sketches on it, which is why I think the movies that I tend to respond to on the wedding side, I think do something interesting, or they turn the convention a little bit on its head.
Well, that's actually what I was trying to kind of get to in my earlier point, is that I really appreciate kind of the movement. And I don't know if, like I said, I think it really started more in literature and in on, you know, you're never gonna see something like, you know, A Streetcar and think, oh, this is a romantic, you know, like concept of marriage or whatever. I mean, like, I really like when they kind of turn the convention, or A Woman Under the Influence. I mean, let's talk about.
Well,
like,
but you're talking about marriage versus wedding.
So yes,
yeah.
But I like the ones that kind of play in the wedding factor, like Rachel getting
that's a really
Rachel at the
good
wedding,
movie. Rachel getting married.
Rachel getting married, which is a fantastic movie. Anne Hathaway, best performance of her career easily. Wasn't it Demi who did that movie, or was it?
I don't. I'll have to look it up. I remember not.
I believe it was Demi
being super like. I wasn't dying to see it, and then I could not stop watching it once I started.
It's such a phenomenal film. But there are quite a few movies that kind of center around weddings, or even have weddings as sort of a feature of them. Like there's
Demi. You're right.
It was Demi. I was right. Like Revolutionary Road, like Mendez. I mean, is a movie where it's before and after, and it's kind of, but the wedding plays such a crucial role in the movie, even though it's not really featured.
Yeah.
But I think it's so crucial to the point of the movie. So I think that there really is the wedding. Like those are not. Like, obviously, Rachel getting married is a wedding movie.
Yeah, yeah.
Bridesmaids is a wedding movie. You know, there's always something else kind of going on, where even when it's the wedding is the main plot point, I still feel like it's an interesting mechanism, because you can really twist it so many different ways. 4 weddings and a funeral, like I said.
Yeah.
I think it's great. It's because and the reason why is because I think it's ripe for comedy. I think it's ripe for drama. Obviously, it's ripe for potentially horror.
Yeah. Well, and there's other times where the wedding never happens, but the wedding is the wedding is the over, it's the
500 Days of Summer, where the wedding is actually not between
God damn
the main
you.
character.
How dare you?
Oh, I know.
How dare you send me to my dark place in the middle of a podcast about weddings?
Well, so of course, but so 500 Days Summer is one of my favorite movies. Well, it was my favorite
Fuck you.
movie of the year it came out. I don't think that all had to do with Summer. I think there were some real life people.
No, she is a horrible human being. She's the biggest villain of the year, that beard.
But where she ends up getting married, and she becomes. But that's not essential to the plot, and I wouldn't call that a wedding movie. But it's so interesting that that's part of what becomes that narrative. It's so important to that narrative at the end of the movie.
Well, it's funny, and so I always research these, and I try to look up as obscure lists as I can find. But sometimes you just go to the big list, whatever the top 50 wedding movies are, and you kind of take a look.
The
through
Graduate.
I mean, I figured Ben and I would talk about The Graduate because it's and that's a great one where the wedding again is it's a plot point, but it's not at all a scene. It's not a moment. It's a moment. It's not
It's the most famous scene, one of the most famous scenes in film of all time.
But it has nothing to do with the wedding necessarily. It has to do with the reaction and what's going on around it.
But there's a wedding going on.
Well, the other one, so the one that I would never have thought about this as a wedding movie, and I consider it on my if we ever do our underrated comedy movies list, this one's on it. Is a movie called In and Out by Frank Oz.
Absolutely.
And In and Out is great because the wedding starts to become this antagonist looming in the background of the plot that's happening in front of it. And I love that because I love that you're just like you're thinking about you also have Joan Cusack delivering her Oscar-winning monologue in her wedding dress.
That's actually a perfect wedding movie, and I really think it is. And I mean, there are tons of movies that
there are a lot. I mean, something I liked. We try to do in the podcast. I think is good. And Ben a lot of times will bring a movie I've never heard of, and it's something I will go and seek out. But there's a really good very wedding centric movie starring Simon Pegg and Tandy Newton, written by Michael Ian Black and directed by David Schwimmer, called Run Fat Boy Run.
Okay, I never saw it, but I remember it.
It's there's a series of movies when I was very obsessed with Wet Hot American Summer and The State, and I would watch anything that any one of them touched. If they had something to do with it, I watched The Baxter, which I consider again another underrated comedy that you should go see. But Run Fat Boy Run is a great one because it's a guy who is engaged to an amazing girl, panics and leaves her at the altar. And 5 years later, he's gone to seed. He's overweight. He's whatever. And he decides he wants to get her back. So he decides to run a marathon to get in shape to win her back. Yep. And it's such a ridiculous plot, except it's not really that ridiculous.
It's not really that ridiculous.
Like you look at it, and I'm like, yeah, we've all done the 3 years later. Oh, I made a huge mistake.
What happened?
Job, yeah. I've made a huge mistake. And then you try to do something ridiculous to make it better. But it's a really good wedding movie if you guys are looking for something to watch that you probably have not seen. I don't think a lot of people saw Run Fat Boy Run.
I remember I really liked the trailer for that movie. I was thinking, I have to see this movie. And I never ended up seeing it. It kind of faded into obscurity for a little bit. So
Schwimmer's a pretty good director. It's a slickly done little movie.
It's good to know.
Yeah. Just so you know.
And it was written by Michael Ian Black.
And next week, David Schwimmer will be our guest in studio, along with Michael Ian Black. So
something tells me that David Schwimmer might say yes to if we ask him to be on our
Something tells me Michael Ian Black is way more likely to be like, I got nothing going on Friday night. Sure, I'll call it. David Schwimmer is busy doing Blow as Ross Geller off of some model right now. That's happening right now. Mm-hmm. No. That's what's happening.
Okay.
Well. Yeah, that's and there's a monkey in the room.
Yeah, but I love
another dark turn in our marriage wedding podcast.
But like I said, I really like to think about the ways in movies like. I know I don't think either of us love the movie, but like Blue Valentine, where it's such a central plot point in the middle of that movie.
I actually really like that movie.
Oh, you did like Blue
I honestly did not. it was another one that I did not think I was going to enjoy. I thought it was going to be too arty
You just didn't like the director or something when you heard an interview or something like that.
It's something like that. Maybe I don't know. I remember watching it and being very surprised at how much I enjoyed it. But because I thought it was going to be very.
I didn't enjoy it. I was just like.
I thought it was going to be too pretentious for its own good, which hits me very hard, and I was just not going to enjoy it, and I wound up liking it.
No, well, I mean, but that's one thing where... Like,
I mean, I fell in love with Ryan Gosling. How can you not?
Where you're working almost backwards, where you're seeing, a relationship form and a relationship fall apart. And at the very end of the movie, you literally see the wedding, like, coupled with the breakup, with the divorce, which is a very terrible thing and sucks. The only problem is I never really rooted for either of those characters in that movie. I just thought it was too slice of life-ish to the point where I was just like, these people seem so flawed.
Well, I can only play this because Nick's not here, but to put it into quotes here.
Guys, the real enemy here is the institution of marriage.
Which is from Wedding Crashers, which is the other... That's how men talk about weddings in movies, is that we're going to make weddings the butt of the joke. But what I also like is that women did that even better in Bridesmaids, which you brought up before. And one of those things I like about Bridesmaids, because I consider Bridesmaids to be one of those that goes outside the convention a little bit, mainly because the Rose Byrne character is not at all unlikable. And I like that the person that we're rooting for is clearly in the wrong. And has to come to grips with that. You've got this other person that is literally just doing the best they can on their side of it. And I love that.
Paul Feig had only listened to me about Ghostbusters. But no, that's actually, because I don't love Bridesmaids.
You and Dan Aykroyd need to have a conversation, because apparently he's not so happy with Feig either anymore. Do you read all those articles?
No.
Oh, yeah. Dan Aykroyd came out hard against him. It was just like, yeah, this is not what we talked about.
Okay. Even though I saw him promoting the movie a week before it came out. And
because he's a producer.
Of course.
You don't just go and shit on your own thing until it's out and it's failed.
Yeah, of course. But anyways, I didn't love Bridesmaids as much as everybody else did, but what I did love is that it was just like, okay, we're going to show flawed but likable characters. And Rose Byrne was a perfect, cast for that, for that type, because she was like, you could tell that she did have like the best intentions.
Yes.
And it was only those times when they started clashing that it got like really fucking catty. And there was no bad guy in that movie.
No, and I like those. I like, because that's way more close to real life.
Exactly.
That there's not,
and that's
usually not a villain.
But I guarantee, I mean, like, just from somebody who's planned a wedding, who's gone through a wedding, I mean, that's the way it goes in real life.
Why don't you just rub it in, Ben? Yeah. Ben. So you all know, Ben won and got married, and I have lost in the game of life.
You said it, not me.
Okay, that's fine. Continue. Please continue.
You cried a lot harder after my wedding.
I guarantee, I'm gonna say this right now. Should I ever get married, I guarantee I cried harder at Ben's wedding than I will at my own. By a lot.
I would hope you wouldn't cry at your own wedding at all.
Oh, I'm gonna cry. Ben, this is what I do. I am a crier. I'm an emotional
John
man.
Cryer.
I am not John Cryer. That is just mean. Just mean.
No, but
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to get through this thing called life.
That's how I'm starting my wedding, by the way. That is I'm not going to let a priest
and then the waterworks just start.
and then I'm going to poorly cut together Prince song lyrics to do the entire ceremony.
The bride doesn't even start walking down the aisle yet, and Matt is just a complete mess up at the altar, just tears, just waterworks pouring down. He's gone through his best man's handkerchief, and so then he's had to go to the next guy's handkerchief, and now it's just this mess. There's this.
Well, the problem is I'm gonna have co-best men at my wedding of you and Nick and my brother.
What?
You're gonna be like 3 men and a baby. and you guys are gonna rock as I'm crying.
We're gonna dress up
You're gonna
as
go
the three amigos.
ba-ba-da-ba-bum. Good night, sweetheart. That's how my night ends. There's no wedding night sex. It's you guys pushing me in a crib, singing the three men and a baby song to me. That's. I've already got this planned out. I've booked a room that will do it.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, hey, man, we'll do it for you.
I definitely shook Ben with that one. I can see the gears running right now.
I was just thinking, no, actually, in my head, I was just like, well,
yeah, I guess so.
I've done worse.
I've done weird things.
I've done weird things than that. So, yeah, I'm good. I'm down for that, man. I was thinking we were gonna have to dress as the three amigos.
No, I'm gonna rent out the Christmas Story house. We're gonna get married at the Christmas Story house. We're gonna recreate key scenes from the movie. I'm gonna do this in the dead of winter, by the way, because you know that I like it cold.
Oh, I like.
So I've had to go to all of these.
My wife is gonna get pissed at you.
I've had to go to all of these outside weddings in the fucking summer. So guess what, bitches? December 12th. That's your birthday, right? Right around there, the 12th.
December 17th.
17th. So just before Ben's birthday, go to a nice, crisp 7-degree Ohio. It's in Cleveland, where the Christmas Story house is. And I'm going to gather all my friends and family out back where the Bumpus Hounds, I will have Bumpus Hounds cast for this specifically, and we'll get married at the Christmas Story house.
Okay.
It's going to be great. It's going to be wonderful. Make my brother sit under the cupboard.
I'll plan all of this.
I'm doing. I'll be honest. This started as a joke, but the more I think about it, I'm like, it's going to look lovely out there.
My wife is going to listen to this and be like, "Speaking of, why don't we get married at the Goonies house? Why don't we get married in fucking Oregon?"
Oh my God, the Goonies house would be a great wedding spot. We could have the reception at the shitty diner where they have it.
Yes.
We can have the bathrooms with a chunk, with a sloth downstairs.
This is so good. I love this idea.
This is so.
I think our job for the rest of our lives is to pitch that idea to everybody that we know, just so somebody could actually have that wedding.
What I love about so this is why I'm going to give a very weird tangent on this one, as weirder than we already are on right now. But Ernie Klein, who wrote Ready Player One, is one of the few people that I've seen geek super hard now that they're becoming like a famous or rich person. And I'm like, I will be a menace. Should I ever, let's say I win the lottery or whatever happens, I will, every like gathering is going to be a shit show of geek stuff. I will do that. I will have a party in Astoria, Oregon, and we'll do it at that shitty shack.
It'll be like the Brett Easton Ellis of fucking geeks.
Yes. This is the world I want to live in. And you can see it if you're ever in our studios here in Boynton Beach, Florida. When you walk into this house, you know what kind of person lives here. Like if a robber comes in here, they're like, shit. That guy's not going to fight.
Actually, and one of the reasons why I love coming over here is because, you know, I'm a married man. I have kids and stuff like that. And so there's a certain amount of paraphernalia that you're only allowed. Which,
yes.
At some point there's going to be a room or there's going to be something that's going to be dedicated to this. And I've been...
Which is hard because you get the kids. The kids take over the...
It has been. But... every time I walk in, I'm just like, I'm home.
This makes me feel. I'm gonna cry. Oh God damn it! It's happening now.
It makes me feel. Make me feel good. It makes me feel so good.
Oh my God! All right. So
speaking of marriage,
how do I not have? Can you make me feel good? As on the soundboard. It will. So next podcast you hear, you're going to hear that quote no less than 13 times.
I guarantee you, as soon as you play it, Nick is going to lose his shit because
I don't think we've ever talked about that. That's my favorite thing,
dude. Nick and I always were like every single time.
But do you know what makes that quote great? By the way, in case, those of you listening, this is from
Monsters
the seminal
Ball.
moment of Monsters Ball, where Billy Bob Thornton gives Halle Berry the Monsters Ball, and
it was Halle Berry's Oscar moment,
and she's coming on to him, and he's like, what do you want? What do you want? And she's like, I want you to make me feel good. And she says this thing, and then he responds, in a perfect Mr. Garrison impersonation. I don't know what you want me to do. And I legitimately lost it when he just looks at her and he's like, I don't know what you want me to do. And then she just looks at him and goes, I want you to make me feel good. And I'm like, this is the funniest movie I've ever seen, which is terrible. It's a very awful moment that's actually happening there. Yeah. But look, we never talked about that. So back to weddings.
Come on, it's not a super exhaustive subject.
No,
so.
This is true. I didn't have like a list of best of, but there are ones I wanted to talk about. So we played clips from the Red Wedding in Game of Thrones, which
that doesn't constitute as anything of a wedding, but
it is a plot point built around a ceremony of differing sides coming together, and that's what I think is kind of magical about what weddings can do from a plot standpoint. Because one of my favorite ones is, have you ever seen The In-Laws? They remade it. They remade it with a great cast, but it wasn't great.
I have not.
So the original In-Laws is Alan Arkin and Peter Falk,
right? Which I felt like I should have seen, but I never did.
And it's like it's great. It's a similar. It's not Meet the Parents, but it's a similar thing. You've got these two dads, and you've got Alan Arkin is the father of this guy that's marrying this girl. And her dad is Peter Falk. This is how you know it's in the 70s. Peter Falk plays a spy. And he doesn't. The other one doesn't know it. He's like a mild-mannered dentist, or like a foot doctor or something. And he winds up in these adventures with this other father as they come to grips with like their kids getting married, and there's all this stuff happening. But that's kind of what I like about the wedding thing, is that you can make that plot other ways, but that's a great way to put that kind of Scarecrow and Mrs. King kind of thing together, where you've got the straight man and the spy going on. Although I still think it's really funny that Peter Falk is like the suave spy in that. Like, that's the 70s. 70s was a different time, man.
It was a different time.
But the remake, amazingly cast, but just not good. But it was Michael Douglas as the spy, Albert Brooks as the nebbishy guy, and Ryan Reynolds as the son. It was a great cast. It's not a good remake.
Yeah,
but unlike the Father of the Bride, which I think was an amazing remake, probably better than the original with Spencer Tracy.
Yeah.
But any other wedding?
Well, I brought up the ones there's some of the movies that I don't like that much that other people really do like. For example, my big fat Greek wedding. Which I'm not a huge fan of, but I actually watched it recently and I was a little softer on it because I understood the sentiment a little bit better than I did when I watched it when I was in college. Because when I was in college, I just felt like it was narratively just a poorly structured movie where it was just relying off of the personalities.
Because it's a play.
It was just relying off of the personalities of the people involved, but there was the ups and downs. There was just nothing there. It was
very contrived.
It was all. It relied off of the charm of the people who were involved, which is innate.
Okay.
It's great, yeah. I mean, and the people who were involved are very funny and they have their own thing. Which is kind of one of the same problems I have with Bridesmaids, because Bridesmaids has more of an arc, but I'm always just like, eh. I mean, I feel like there's.
It gets in the situation where you're like, okay, sometimes it's funny because I feel a lot of those movies when anytime it turns into like this uncomfortable Three's Company thing or like a Frasier episode. There are Frasier episodes. It was funny because one of my roommates in college, he was so similar to the Frasier Crane character that he'd sit on the couch watching episodes of Frasier and he'd literally curl into the fetal position. And I get it because for people that are awkward or that have awkward moments like that in life, those things are like torture porn.
Sure,
like they're like watching a Hostel movie.
But one thing I did want to bring up was if we get into television, where we have all sorts of great and terrible wedding moments in television, of course. Friends being a terrible one.
Oh yeah, where he says the wrong woman's name at his wedding. And by the way, I'm going to say it right now. Hot British Emily, way better than Rachel. You made the wrong mistake, Ross. And you're going to live with that off.
You made the wrong mistake.
You made the right mistake. Wait, you made the wrong.
You said you made the wrong mistake, which is basically saying, no matter who you marry, you're fucked. But you made the wrong mistake.
Yeah, I said what I said, and I was right.
But in season 2 of How I Met Your Mother.
Oh no!
No, which is I know.
I knew we had to talk about it at some point on this one.
It's one of my favorite. But the thing is, I'm not talking about the main character. I'm not talking about Josh Radnor's character. I'm not talking about Ted Mosby or any of the stuff. I feel like that show is mostly kind of centralized around the Marshall and Lily characters.
Yeah,
and Jason Segel and Allison Hannigan, respectively. And they get married at the end of the second season.
They're the first ones to be adults in the group.
Well, they get engaged in the first episode of the first season, and they break up, and they get back together, and they finally get married. But so what I find really awesome about that sequence of events, and one of the things I've never really seen anywhere else in popular culture, which is I really, really loved what they did with it, was that weddings are just obviously going to go wrong, and you have like the bridezillas that with all sorts of stuff that are going terrible, and you have like grooms that are just freaking out because they're about to get committed for life or whatever. You're playing to every single cliche. You have every single cliche in the book, and they're playing it up. And so what they decide to do is that they just say fuck it, and they get together. Like they're both going outside. Like I think Lily goes outside to smoke a cigarette. Who doesn't smoke or whatever, and Marshall's outside trying to find a hat from somebody because he's shaved like his hair off, and they end up meeting outside, and they say, well, let's just get married right here because Barney's a notary public, and a notary public in the state of New York can marry somebody. So they're like, it doesn't matter what happens inside. So there's this really awesomely touching moment where it's just 4 people, 5 people kind of sharing this like really intimate moment with one another. There's no the vows are just improv in a couple of lines, and it's super close and super intimate. And then they go and they do their wedding. They actually go to their wedding, and even Bob Saget, as the older Ted says, that there was no pressure at that point because everything got completely fucked like they knew it would. And everything just goes completely backwards. But at that point, they were all so happy just because they had shared that one moment with their family. It was actually, and like I said, there's a reason why I like MASH is one of my favorite television shows of all time. Season 2 of How I Met Your Mother, I think, is the most genuinely interesting retrospective comment on relationships of people in their late 20s and early 30s. And I don't think it will ever be beaten in my mind because it reminded me so much of my friends.
Well, and that's really interesting. And that's a podcast for another time, kind of talk about art, because there's a series on right now that is getting terrible reviews, and everything I read about it.
Are you talking about
friends from college?
So I watched the first 3 episodes.
Okay,
and it has the same problem with me that I have with girls, which is where you don't like any of the characters. And it's overplayed a little bit. The funny moments are very funny, and they have very high moments, but they are trying a little bit too hard.
Well, and what's interesting to me, so I went to, so I know it's like all kind of like rich kid kind of ones. I went to a school with rich kids, and one of my, I won't say they're the offspring of a very famous athlete that I went to high school with, and they're like, if you're not, you need to watch the show. And they go, it is not easy to watch. It is very uncomfortable for me personally to watch, but they're like, it is really valuable to and it was kind of interesting because it was, I read all of these reviews that were on it. And what's funny, I'm kind of curious on the How I Met Your Mother front, if it happened before or after, because the Office actually did the same thing with their
How I Met Your Mother was first. Season 2 was 2006, 2007.
Yeah, that would definitely be first, because The Office does a very similar thing where the wedding is collapsing around them. They go on the boat to Niagara Falls,
3 years later.
And I always liked that. That sucks. It sort of hurts that for me because that was the similar thing where I'm like, I like that. I like it, and we're gonna tie it into something real for us. I like it because there is a realism to it that we witnessed at Luke's wedding, that Luke and his bride were supposed to go outside for photos. I don't think I'm breaking any rule, a confidence on this. And photos were delayed for 45 minutes because the bride and groom took their limo.
Disappeared. They disappeared.
Disappeared.
And I assume that they had gone to the hotel suite or gone back. I mean, I've known Luke for a really long time.
I assumed the limo was around the corner and they were just
exactly.
Do not disturb sign on it. But they went to a brewery that they really liked in the area, which neither of them are like big brewery people. They just happen to really like that location.
Yeah, exactly.
And they went and got a beer as husband and wife and took pictures themselves, with an iPhone. And they're like, and their answer when everyone was like, "Where the hell were you?" We're like, "It's our wedding. This is our wedding." That of all things, I'm like, okay, I appreciate that because really that's kind of the beauty of weddings nowadays.
It is for them. It is for them. It shouldn't be for everybody else, which is what everybody thinks it should be about everybody else. Yes. But it's not.
And I think that's a good lesson that everyone should take one moment of their wedding for themselves.
Exactly.
Everybody else is going to get plenty of shit. Everyone's going to get their food and drink and booze and whatever on there.
Yep, exactly.
I know I got plenty of all of those at Ben's wedding.
The groom's parents and the bride's parents and everybody else, all the family members who are involved, they're all going to give their 2 cents. And
I couldn't remember which Sam Adams we were drinking before your wedding, but I almost got some of those for tonight.
Shit.
Because I mean we'll save it for another. Ben and I both have our demon stories of weddings getting the better of us. Ben's is probably the worst I've ever been anywhere.
John's?
No, John's.
John Lawrence. No, never mind.
No. Oh no, yours was pretty bad there. Mine was bad at your wedding. The worst I was ever at a wedding. Was
the worst
wedding.
I was ever was John Lawrence.
Yeah,
wedding.
I've heard that one.
Yeah, that was
because it was a Georgia game that day. By the way, folks out there, Ben.
Do not. By the way, here's the way. We will sign off on this. If you have half a fucking mind, never schedule your wedding in the fall. Yes, never schedule your wedding in the fall on either a Saturday or a Sunday when college football or pro football is being played. It is over.
Yeah.
If you want to do it on a Friday, do it.
Ben will 1 hour into your wedding will recreate Bill Paxton in Aliens. Just go, game over, man. Game over. Game over. What are we gonna do?
That's all I have to say.
So thank you, all of you, for listening. All of you.
All of you.
Thanks, Greg and Haley, and maybe sometimes my mom, but she doesn't really enjoy it, so probably not her. Might be my brother, maybe JR and Terry. Maybe we have a lot on there.
Maybe Jeremiah.
Maybe Jeremiah. Our new best friend, Jeremiah. I can't wait to meet you. I hope you don't feel awkward about this. But anyway, we thank you for listening to the New Way podcast. And we hope you tune in next week.
Cheers.
God bless you.